Welcome back to the Symbiosis Literary Festival 2025. We hope that you've had a lovely lunch and are now primed to chew on some interesting ideas. We'll move from breads to threads. Yeah? The next session features creators who spin stories out of cotton, metal, silk, and imagination. The artists who remind us that in India, even fabric comes with a plot twist. Let me just quickly get to the meat of it and introduce the speakers quickly. We have with us Iti Tyagi, the founder of Craft Village and India Craft Week. She also serves as a board member at MIT ADT in Pune. She's also served as a UNESCO WCC International Juror for World Craft Cities. She was honored with the prestigious Nari Shakti Puraskar, the highest civilian honor for women by the President of India in 2019. BW Disrupt Women Entrepreneur in 2019, India Fashion Awards 2020, and many more in the field of culture and social entrepreneurship. She has studied fashion design at the National Institute of Fashion Technology and interior design at KLC School of Design, London. She is also the author of India, Good Stories Untold, a memoir of journey she has taken to mystical parts of India. This book tries to capture the essence of India through the manifestations of its culture, art, and crafts. You can also follow her work and research around culture on her YouTube channel. It's at Iti Tyagi. Dr. Gurvinder K. Gundev is currently serving as consultant for design archives at couturier Tarun Tahiliani's design house. She's completed her PhD in reviving the craft of Fulkari in terms of technique and pattern designs, materials, etc. by training women artisans from Patiala Nabha, Punjab. Her expertise includes craft curation, documentation, artisan training and skill upgradation, and sustainable craft design and development. Dr. Gurvinder has conducted craft-based workshops for artisan skill upgradation at grassroots levels, and she's been part of the craft community through forums like Fair Trade Forum India and All India Artisans Craft Workers Welfare Association. She's been awarded with Kalanjali Puraskar at the national level by the Crafts Council of Telangana for reviving Fulkari in its essential aspects. As a revivalist, she designs Fulkari wall art pieces for modern spaces. Her art piece titled Rukh, Tree of Life, was displayed at Sutra Santati, then, now, and next, a craft exhibition that was showcased at national and international museums. She strongly believes in shaping the traditional crafts for modern times, but by keeping their essence and quintessence intact. We also have with us Rashmi Ranade, who is the founder and lead designer of the Pune-based Studio Copper. She is an architect from Sir J.J. School of Architecture, Mumbai, and has a postgraduate degree in product design from IIT Bombay. For 2 decades, she spearheaded product design, planning, brand positioning, and graphic design in her design studio, while also working on design interventions with a number of craft clusters in India and on heritage advocacy and documentation. Recently, however, she has been focusing her energies, along with other Studio Copper founders, on the Copper Craft Revival Project of Maharashtra, and more recently, working with other craft clusters and craft practices such as metalwares, basketry, and weaving in other states of the country, with the aim of bringing India's talented handcrafting artisans into the economic mainstream. At Copper, she spearheads product design and planning, brand positioning, and graphic design. 3 things that keep Rashmi going. 1 is writing long letters to friends. 2nd is collecting locks. She can spend hours foraging through old markets for the same. And 3rd is me time. Welcome everybody. We are absolutely locked in for your session. The session will be moderated by Dr. Sanjeevani Ayachit, who is currently the director at Symbiosis Institute of Design and Dean of the Faculty of Architecture and Design at SIU. She holds a PhD from SIU, a master's degree in clothing and textile from MS University of Baroda, and has over 20 years of experience in the field of apparel design, design education, and consultancy. Dr. Sanjeevani headed the departments of fashion design and fashion communication at SID for several years and also served as the deputy director. Her PhD explores the cross-cultural subtleties of the costumes of the Peshwas of Pune. Her research interests lie in the areas of heritage Indian textiles and costumes, fashion design process, design thinking, and inclusive design. Dr. Sanjeevani has also co-authored a book documenting the historic textiles and costumes in the collection of the Kelkar Museum in Pune. Thank you so much, Dr. Sanjeevani, for being here. May I please invite Dr. Sanjeevani to felicitate our panelists.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and I do not think we require any further introductions for these three wonderful ladies. So we have Rashmi, Iti, and Gurvinder with us. All three of them have worked in the field of craft revival and in very different ways. So it's best that we hear from them how they have gone about with this whole process. Now that we have various events like Dastakar or like the Delhi Haat, where a lot of these artisans are displaying their craft, and we have organizations such as yours, where you are working very tirelessly for the revival of these crafts. Where do you think that the evolution of Indian crafts is at this point? I mean, is it in a revival state? Do you think it's in a crisis state? Or do you think it's in a transition state?
Thanks for all the introductions. I think after the introductions, I would like to say that let's just have questions from the panelists because a lot of our work has already been spoken about. Okay, so India is home to about, let's say, 70 million crafts, 70 million artisans. India has 70 million artisans. Compare that to about 6 million IT sector, so we know the kind of volume we're talking about. And it's home to about 3,000 different art forms, craft forms, right from the humble, broom to the, most intricate gold and silver work. So it's very difficult to put a generalization as to, whether Indian crafts is in revival, survival, or in transition. When we talk of terms like revival, survival, and transition, we're probably looking at the economics of the entire craft sector. So I'll just illustrate this point with a few examples that I have. Every year in this city of ours, this lovely city of Pune, we have what is called a bamboo mela. And there are bamboo artisans coming from all over Maharashtra and showing their wares. These are small little speakers for your phones, or pen stands, or a bamboo straw, or even a bamboo tongue cleaner, and bamboo water bottles and things like that. And that mela is packed. So, and the price points for this market is something around 200 rupees. It starts at 150. You'll even get something for 75 rupees. So for me, that is maybe one sector where craft should be marketed, at that price point. At another price point, when we look at, designers like us working with the craft sector, trying to innovate and trying to bring out new things, working with artisans, I think that's in revival mode. And at the higher end, where let's say you're buying a sari for, a couple of lakhs of rupees, the number of artisans practicing that kind of work is fallen. But then the ones who are remaining are getting remuneration for their work. So I feel that going forward, the only way that craft will, sustain is through innovation and new design.
Thank you. Thank you, Rashmi. Iti?
Thank you, Sanjeevani, for moderating this panel with us. I think the question itself has the answer. I would not categorize it in a manner that, okay, there is a sustenance, there is a transition, or there is a survival. Every industry has all age groups of people. Similarly is the craft industry. You have artisans who are above 60 years of age, you have artisans who are in 40s and 50s, and then you have a younger generation. The generation which is just out of the college, who are looking at their father, grandfather, who have earned national accolades, Padma Shri, state awardees, and they are also contemplating whether they want to do something or not. So in a same family, there are 3 generations. This is with every craft person, every house. So one is trying to survive the craft, one is in a mode of transition, which is the younger one, and one which is just retaining it as it is. So when I talk about the artisans who are old age, they are somehow practicing same thing which they are doing from last 5 decades. They do not know how to change with technology, and they should not be changing with technology, otherwise the culture will die. Not every time we need change. We must understand that. And then there is a second generation. The second generation is the one who's seen their father practicing the same crafts, but want a little modulation because the times are changing. And then these are the young kids who do not want to do the crafts. So what is exciting for them? They look at their friends, fellow artisans, they travel to different places. There is social media, which is exciting to them, and they want to bring a change. So transition for them. So I think when I look at the industry at large, whether it's Dastkar, Dilli Haat, whether it was your own college yesterday, the Shilp Katha presentation that I have seen many kids following the same patterns, but some are there who are trying to bring the change. So you can never say the entire industry is transiting together. You can never say the entire industry is in a revival mode together, or they are just surviving. We always see an amalgamation of all three things together.
Actually, I'd like to add in that there are many points which have been covered already, but I think, yes, the answer to this is like going hand in hand. You cannot leave behind the tradition, just like Iti ma'am just said, that we have these 3 generations in every household which are working on the craft basis on their own understanding of the craft. But I think the way forward is you cannot leave the tradition behind and only run behind innovation or technology. I think in the sector of crafts, it has to always go hand in hand. It cannot be just traditional, it cannot be just technological, it has to be hand in hand. And only then, like I always advocate, that the traditional textiles or crafts have to have some innovation in it, but also it should have some essence of the truest form of the craft. So if you are running behind just the technology part, you are definitely going to lose behind the sense of it. And that's why the way forward is to take both the things in hand and then move forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, there were such interesting points that came up here, you know. I mean, that we cannot really say that we are in any one situation or one stage at this point. Everybody will belong to one stage or the other, and we have to move with all of them together while we are adopting technology, because I think that's a big point that you've made here, the adoption of technology. So here, when we're talking about organizations such as yours, like Rashmi, your Studio Copper, and your Craft Village, or even Tarudha Hilyani, so when we're looking at these organizations, how do you think you are able to balance this heritage conservation, because we are talking about keeping the traditions alive, and also keeping the relevance to contemporary wants, needs, and desires of this audience that we are having right now, as well as keeping a commercial viability in mind. So preserving traditions, commercial viability, while we also have contemporary relevance. So how do you think your organizations are balancing this?
I think answer to this question would be, like, at our organization, what I've seen is, like, Tarun is very much into having the craft in the most truest and traditional form. Like, I've seen artisans working with us who are master of their craft. Like, there is no negotiation when it comes to the quality of the materials, the quality of the craft that happens in-house. You might have seen the recent collections that we've worked with is highly inspired by Pitchwise. So we have made wall pieces out of it, we've made lehengas out of it. So much of bridal collection that we've made, all the couture comes from the inspiration of Pitchwai. But we all know that Pitchwai is a very religious textile. It comes from Nathdwara, and it used to serve as the Pitchwai, or the textile which goes behind Srinathji's idol. So it is a very religious textile. But now converting that and putting it into a couture, which a person is going to wear, there are high chances that it might hurt some sentiments of the communities who are following Srinathji. So taking in consideration the sentiments, the essence of the craft, like we have talked about, keeping the unique or authentic way of converting the Pitchwai, but in a contemporary form. So if you look at the collection that we've made, the motifs have been highly inspired from the craft, although the colors and the theme has been made into a way that it would suit the present day market. So the color touch is what is contemporary. But when you look at the motives and everything, it is highly inspired from it. And definitely you cannot use godly figures or, godly symbolisms on the garments because, of course, for the obvious reasons. So that's why there are so many different motives that you can play around. You have architectural motives, you have flora and fauna. So that's the take of a designer when it comes on taking inspiration from a traditional textile which holds of a certain sentiment value, but converting into a contemporary textile, you have to make sure that what is the part that you are taking inspiration from? Is it from the story? Is it from the motive language? Is it the color part of it? So there are many ways to look at it. And I think back at the head office, what I see is keeping the karigari intact. Like when I'm talking about the karigari, like I've seen our artisans working with ek tar silk thread, which goes on the couture lehengas or the bridal wear lehengas. So there is no compromise in that. And when we say about making it commercially viable, I think there's a market for every product. Just like ma'am said, in the bamboo heart, you find products which are starting from 200. So definitely there is a market for that. But there are also people who have, there's a market of people who can also afford a 20 lakh lehenga or a 25 lakh lehenga. So when we talk about reviving crafts, or when we talk about, using craft in a contemporary way, but for a couture kind of collection, that's the point when it comes in picture, where you can play so much with the true form of craft in terms of its, techniques, materials, embroideries. There are endless possibilities. But when it comes on making it in a retail category, that's where the challenge comes. And that's where I think you'll have to innovate. So just like you want to keep the essence intact, but you can't go with the traditional embroidery. And if you think that converting into it a machine made embroidery, or into having it into a digital print is going to save or maybe convey the story out of it, I think there's nothing wrong about it, because that's the way forward. Just now we said that we are still keeping the story intact, but we are actually using the technology part of it for the craft to at least communicate with that retail market as well.
I'm a bit orthodox here. Whenever I'm seeing younger generation, they are just picking up any craft form, the fabric, and putting it into a product. That's the same thing I saw yesterday. Now imagine you have a pencil holder, and that pencil holder has a Madhubani fabric on it, or let's say a chikankari fabric on it, or a pichwai fabric on it. What is the use of that craft? It's no use. You can replace any fabric. Ultimately, what you have made is a product. So why it is sometimes important to be orthodox is you cannot go and change anything and everything. You are making notebooks, you are putting chanderi fabric on it, you are putting Banarsi weave on it, you are putting Madhubani, Pichwai, Kalamkari. You are just replacing the cover of the notebook by putting any kind of a craft form. Now imagine, can you make chappal out of it? You can't make, na? You can't put a Pichwai on a chappal. It's a godly textile. Matani Pachedi is a godly textile. Every time poking something or twisting with the craft doesn't help. It's no use. Changing does not mean we should interfere in anything and everything. I would never suggest any young student or a young generation to pick up any kind of, first of all, you have to study about craft form. First of all, you have to study what is the meaning of a Madhubani. What is kobar? कहाँ से निकला है, क्या है प्रथा, क्या है, शादी की कौन सी कहानियां हैं, नवग्रहों को क्यों पूछते हैं. Most of the time, the young generation, the mistake they do is they think the craft is only some brush, twigs, pens, colors, and then just the art form. No, it's not that. That is why a contemporary art and a traditional craft are two different things. A traditional craft is a lot more than that. It's a storyline. ये कथाएं हैं जो हमारे पुराणों से निकली है, हमारे स्पिरिचुअल टेक्स्ट से निकली हैं. उनके कुछ मौलिक आधार हैं. जब पिछवाई की कथा है, जब माता नी पछेड़ी की हम बात करते हैं, तो हम डेटीज की बात कर रहे हैं, हम उन कम्युनिटीज की बात कर रहे हैं. वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द कम्युनिटीज विच वर लेफ्ट बिहाइंड, वर नॉट अलाउड टू एंटर द टेम्पल्स. इट्स एन इंटीग्रल पार्ट ऑफ समवन्स सिस्टम. It is integral part of someone's practices. So, sometime, what I'm trying to touch upon is that contemporarization is not a correct thing. Most of the time you go to these hearts and bazaars, you'll see young stalls where the pen holder, paper holder, lamp holder, chappal, shirt, juta, you will see the fabric of a craft. That is not solving the issue of craft. Coming on to the price point. Now, moment we say we want a cheaper option, let's go for digitalization. But then you are still killing the craft. By printing something through machine is killing the craft completely. Craft itself means hand done, handmade, hand woven, hand painted. The moment your hand has not made that piece, it is not a craft. Craft originates from the communities, from the culture, from the creativity of that particular community. It was made not for the purpose of art, it was made for the purpose of their livelihood. Origin of craft is always from livelihood. It is never for the art's sake. इंडिया आज भी कितना परसेंट है जिसमें लोग क्राफ्ट अफोर्ड भी नहीं कर सकते बड़ी बड़ी महंगी पेंटिंग्स. कितने मिडिल क्लास घरों में आपको लाख 2 लाख रुपए की पिछवाई पेंटिंग टंगी मिलेगी? You can't. So let's talk fact. When we are talking about handmade stuff, we are talking about time, we are talking about mineral colors, stone colors, original colors. We are talking about maintenance. We are talking about long labors, long hours of doing it. We're talking about the songs that the women are sitting and singing while doing the katha embroidery. We are talking about lot many things. So this question needs a lot of thought process. Every time I have, this kind of a question comes, I always think that from generation to generation, it is also our responsibility. We people who are holding positions, we have to find out ways how to get craft, on affordable price points. So I think for affordable price points is whenever we are using it in a product in an original form, not in a duplicate form, not in an artificial manner, not in a digitalized manner, we have to train more and more people. When more and more people get trained, the price point automatically comes down. When you have only one family doing some kind of a craft, definitely the price point will go higher. So that means we have to ensure that craft do not die. The craft do not get lost.
So I come from a slightly different space. My organization, we work largely with metalwares, where there is not that much motif, not that much color, and not that much texture. So in fact, for people like us who work with hard materials, it's called hard materials work, we find that embedded within the product is the process itself. So the process itself is a heritage. The tools itself is a heritage. Like for instance, we started our work by reviving the copper craft of Maharashtra, in fact Pune, also some other areas in Maharashtra, Ratnagiri, etc. We found that some of the equipment, like there is a lovely, anvil and large hammers that they use, those were 400 years old. I mean, if you look at any Western culture, which culture has equipment that has lasted 400 years? So this heritage is seen in the products that we do. We don't have to shout that this is our heritage, this is our heritage. When you show the product, a learned audience or a buyer can actually see the process behind it, because the tools are the same, that's the heritage. The way the process, the way the things are made is heritage also. So we consider that the process of making, the tools, and also the oral traditions and stories related with the objects they used to make as a part of heritage. Now coming to the question of balancing commercial viability and crafts, it's a very, very tricky question. Because I find that, I strongly believe that artisans are primarily makers, right? There are various movements going around in the country saying that, artisans should become entrepreneurs, they should do this, they should do that. But I believe that artisans are primarily makers. And you cannot plug in an artisan community into a business model that is modern. What artisans need is support. Support so that their work can reach, more and more people and more markets. So, yeah, so these are my points.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So I think what we require for people who are working with these artisans or people who are working with these crafts is to keep in mind the sensitization to the cultural values behind that craft. So every craft has got multiple layers of meanings and history. So that realization and that sensitization, I think, is most important, particularly for young students who wish to do a lot, you know, for the upliftment of crafts, particularly when we have students in the field of design. Everybody wants to do this or that for the artisan, and they feel that product diversification is the easiest way possible. But unless they have this sensitivity about what the heritage of the craft is, that going ahead could, you know, maybe rub people the wrong way. So like you said, you know, if you cannot have these textiles or, you know, things which have deeper cultural values on chappals or footwear, that is simply not possible. But this sensitization is very, very essential. Yes. So thank you so much for all three of you know, your responses. Very emotionally, passionately said. So okay, my next question goes to Gurvinder. Now this is slightly different to what we are talking about. So considering your profile as an archivist at this Couture House, could you tell us what kind of work you do as an archivist, and what do you think the challenges that you face every day? Because, you know, keeping these crafts alive itself and keeping old or these older samples alive or archived is a big difficult job. So could you tell us a little about that?
It is indeed a difficult job, but somebody has to do it. So that's where my role will come in picture. So archiving, I'll talk very specifically about what I did at Tarun, because Tarun, you all know, is in fashion business since last 30 years. And since last 30 years, he's carved out a name for himself, which is amazing. Like, we look up to him like a role model, like in the field of fashion. So when I enter his archives, I look at samples that were made in the earliest time of the brand when it was still evolving. So to give you a number or the idea of how huge the archive is that we handled there, is approximately 8,000 to 9,000 pieces, which we look at daily. And these pieces come from all different type of techniques or crafts which belong to different states. So what we do there is basically, there's also digital documentation that we are doing, because some pieces are really old and handling them like every day is going to ultimately, you know, destroy the piece. So it is very important that we, you know, convert a digital archival, you know, place where designers, the in-house designers, can access to these very unique pieces that are very core of the brand. So when we talk about why do we need archiving in a couture house, like, it is very important to keep the design language alive. There are many designers who, you know, work with the brand, then maybe switch, and there are new people who replace. But when you look at the library, you look at the archives of the designs that we have, drawing inspiration from the very in-house designed pieces keeps the design language intact as well. And when we talk about different techniques that come from different states, so we have, Banarasi woven fabrics from the Banaras weavers. We commission these pieces from the weavers itself. So there are these textile designers who are working on the textile patterns, and then they are specifically woven with these weavers. Or when we talk about chikankari, so there's a cluster which was also part of a CSR activity, and training the women artisans of Lucknow to create those beautiful embroidered chikankari lehengas or anarkalis that we see, again with a single tar silk thread. And it is very unique. So Tarun's chikankari is very unique in terms of, because it's super fine, it is done with a single tar, that is a single strand of silk thread. So there are designers like Manish Malhotra also who are working with chikankari, but he's working majorly with a cotton thread, and that's why the visual appeal of his collection is superly different. But what we do at Tarun is with a silk thread, and that's why the couture part of it remains intact. There are some stitches in chikankari which are now going to, be extinct, because there are very few people who actually know how to do it. So there is a stitch called as a hole, which creates a small hole where you have to, create a space in between the textile to give it a hole kind of effect. That is a stitch, or the jali of chikankari. So these are a few stitches which very few artisans now know how to work with, and the fineness of that is what makes chikankari, very unique in itself. What we see in the market is like a very watered down version. Like when I relate it to my revival work of Fulkari, I call them caricatures of the craft, because what we see in the market is not what the craft truly is. So in my initial days when I was researching and I was visiting these different museums to look at, I literally had to go to the museums to see how the craft originally was. Because in the market, the picture is very different. You just don't get to see what is true. Of course, for the reasons like the affordability or the scarcity of the artisans who now actually know what the traditional technique is to actually create that. Again, to suit the commercial viability, people have just, just started working with the shadow stitch. And if there's a shadow stitch, they just simply call it a chicken curry. But there are so many different stitches which people don't know about, which actually, are all summed together and create the craft's identity. So that part is also very important. So back at the archives, our main job is to make sure that all the pieces that belong to the archive are safely kept, are easily retrieved whenever the designer needs them. They are properly documented, because sometimes something like a chicken curry, if we have some vendors in Lucknow which work at their own places, to make sure that the details and the documentation part of who was the vendor, when was it made, for whom it was made, whether it was commissioned for a very particular high profile client. So details like these actually are part of that documentation as well. A little bit of the description as well, what kind of fabrics and the materials have been used. If there is a certain code that you can give to a particular piece, so it's easier for you to pull out the piece whenever it is required. Plus, this archive also serves as a great source to create the mood boards for the upcoming collections. So when you look at the huge vocabulary that we have of the colors, of the techniques, of the embroideries from all over India, it becomes the source of, pulling out pieces, putting it on the board and creating the mood out of it. So I've seen Tarun, like recently, when we talk about design students, I've seen students just simply going on the Google, going on the Pinterest, going on Behance to see what's trending, what's the color. Okay, maybe she's used this in a book, I can use it in a dupatta or in a lehenga. But I've seen Tarun working the traditional way and looking into the books, digging into the archives. So when there is like a collection that is coming up, he makes sure that, he spends enough time in the archives to actually see what is talking to him for the current theme that is going to come up in the collection. And because setting up the mood is going to actually be the base of what the final collection is going to be like. So archives is a place where the magic begins, and it is also a place where it ends. Because once the collection is completed, the entire story, the circle of archiving and documenting is closed there. So it starts from there, and once the piece is ready, it also goes back into the record that this so-and-so pieces were used or reused to create these so-and-so collections after 20 years, after 15 years, after 25 years. So the value of
such a wonderful
archive-
way of keeping that circle
Yes.
alive. So
Exactly.
you're archiving, documentation, and inspiration from the same. Thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Gurvinder,
Yes.
for describing that process. So coming to you, Rashmi, we are running slightly short of time. So coming to you, Rashmi, particularly for you, at Studio Copper, you have worked with the Tambat craft, which is a very traditional metal craft of Pune or Maharashtra. So how have you adapted the traditional techniques of Tambat and converted them into a more contemporary version? Because I have seen your products and they are very, very contemporary, very usable. So how have you done that adoption while keeping the heritage alive, while working with the artisans, because they are also very proud of their traditional processes? So how do you handle this?
Right. So, in fact, let's say the language of our work, or I don't like the word brand, but the language of our project comes from this craft itself. Very minimal, very, very rugged, and just simple, straightforward forms. And that has come because Maharashtra has not been, crafts didn't have patronage in Maharashtra. So, I'm not going to go into the history of this, but what I'd like to say here is that our project is is the craft itself. And a lot of our products are inspired, in fact, by the use of copper and metalwares in India's daily rituals, customs. It could be from any community. So for instance, in India, we've always said that, drinking water from a copper container is beneficial to health. So we have a series of water, water series, which is, we've called it Tamra Gel, which is inspired by this tradition. So there's a direct transfer of Indian customs into, a contemporary product. So much so that a lot of our water series are, the designs that we do and the crafts that the artisans that they make have been duplicated in large numbers all over the country. Yeah. So they say that, imitation is the best form of, flattery. So I guess that's where it is. Similarly, like in our rituals, we use metals for, lighting lamps and diyas. So we have a whole new collection. We've given it a small twist. We have tea lights and we also have oil lamps. And tableware, we work with bronze from Rajasthan and West Bengal. So bronze has been in Indian customs very good to eat out of. So contemporizing those forms as well. So the springboard for our brand and the work and the shapes and the processes is from the metal crafts of India. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Coming to Iti now. Iti, as national entity for the World Craft Council, and also being that the vice presidency also lies with you this for the World Craft Council, how do you see that Craft Village and this organization have become these powerful platforms for artisans to assert their own innovation, to assert their own creativity, while also proving to be aspirational for the younger artisans who also, belong to that same craft, but not maybe to those artisans who are maybe supported by you. So how do you think your Craft Village and the national entity that you are now, how do you think this is empowering our Indian artisans to become aspirational for the next generation of artisans?
First of all, we have to understand what is a national entity, because the audience wouldn't understand it. So World Craft Council is a center body globally. It is a unit of UNESCO where all the continents and then their countries and the craft organization or the craftsmen do become members. Once they become members, after that, on the basis of the work they have done, they are chosen as a national entity. India, till date, had Craft Council of India, which was founded by Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay ji, very respectful woman, who was also the first founding member of World Craft Council. In the year 2020, Craft Village was announced as national entity on the basis of the work we had done since 2015. So it's a matter of great pride. The national entity means an organization which represents the craft and culture of their country. That means in India, now Craft Council of India and Craft Village, they both represent the essence of India, the essence of Indian crafts and Indian culture. Coming on to the question that Sanjeevni ma'am has asked, this is a very responsible position. This year, we have a vice presidency of World Craft Council Asia Pacific region. That means our role is not limited just to India, but also representing the entire Asian continent. Also, it is such an important position that we are not just taking care of India, we are also taking care of our fellow neighbors, despite all the wars. Because craft and culture is beyond many other things. So our role is very important here. Here we have to ensure that we get participated into various events. We participate as a jury, we participate as an organizer. We also organize International Craft Awards, which is world's largest private craft awards. Till date, more than 40 nations have participated and more than 25 nations have won the awards with us, which is a great participation, and in fact more than what World Craft Council awards have achieved. So here our role is to bring the world closer to us, is bring the continents closer to us. Coming on to the artisan, how do artisans get benefited? When we become a national entity, we invite more and more artisans to become the members at World Craft Council. Through this, they get the opportunity to sell their work, not just to the hearts and bazaars in India, but also to the international platforms. They get sponsored tickets, they get possibilities, opportunities, they get show timings, they get to do the fashion shows. I know there are two artisans, Jabbar and Mubin from Kutch. They do their fashion shows abroad. We always send them. So we find the ways where we can take Indian artisans and get them participated into the international shows. This ways, they get to show the Indian culture, Indian crafts, and also get to earn quite in different currencies. So their work is not limited. Also, how do they benefit the upcoming generation? When the younger generation sees that our parents, our fathers are not limited to just selling to a couple of hearts in Delhi or Mumbai, or let's say Gujarat or Maharashtra, but they are traveling abroad, they get inspired. Because of the social media today, it doesn't take much of a time for a news to spread. So they're continuously checking out what's happening, where are we getting presented, who's liking us. So many people are coming forward. They're making friends in different countries. They are doing a cultural exchange as well. See, cultural exchange, money is one important aspect, which is your economic conditioning, for which you need it. But apart from that, there is so much else that a craftsman needs. It's the appreciation, it's the cultural representation, it's the exchange programs, it's the rewards, the awards they are getting. So how do that get benefited? That gets benefited when there is somebody who's their voice. We become that voice. Thank you.
It's amazing that you were working so much for this advocacy of the artisans, and I truly appreciate the kind of work you all are doing. So coming to my last question, so this is a slightly more interesting question. I'm sure the audience would also be aware of this. So referring to the latest few interesting episodes that happened on the World Fashion Forum, particularly when it comes to Prada and the Kolhapuri chappals, or even Nordstrom and the Indian Chola bags, also the Dior and Mukesh work. Okay, so we see that the Western fashion borrows very freely from Indian tradition, craft traditions. So how do we, how can we as, say, revivalists or advocates, the craft revivalists, how can we address this question or this differentiation between what is inspiration and what is appropriation?
I think controversies are great for any sector. Okay, I'd like to start with that. I think Kolhapuri chappals have sold more after Prada. Everybody has gone and pulled out their moldy Kolhapuri chappals from their shoe racks, polished them up, and worn them to the next party. So, yeah, so jokes apart. So the thing with appropriation and inspiration is that it is usually seen to be done by the powers that be. A big corporate house, or let's say, a big fashion house, or somebody who is the dominant force in society. So, and appropriation done by a dominant force adversely affecting a marginalized or underserved community, right? But there is another aspect to this. And yes, this should, I'm not saying it should not be done. It is done, it's done for centuries. These are inspirations. But just like academic journals, I think a citation or a small note saying inspired by or giving due credit to a community from where this inspiration has been taken is absolutely due, and that should be done. But I have a slightly different viewpoint on this, which is that, Pune, if you look back at the 1950s, Navalmal Firodia in Pune, he, let's say, redesigned the rickshaw. I mean, it was taken from Piaggio. It was an inspiration or appropriation from Piaggio. And the rickshaw became a symbol of the city, right? Now, how many of us designers, and I'm pointing fingers at myself, have used the rickshaw symbol on T-shirts, on, like Iti says, on notebooks, and even artisans, they make cute little wire rickshaws, right? So what I'm trying to say is inspiration and appropriation work both ways. It's not only by the dominant force of society, it's also artisans that, let's say a Sabyasachi lehenga, I'm not a great lehenga person, but a Sabyasachi lehenga, you'll find a copy the next day at Sarojini Market or Buleshwar in Bombay or something like that, right? So yes, so there is inspiration, there is appropriate, it will continue. I mean, iPhones are inspirations, and our neighboring China is, has phones which mimic the iPhone. Everybody's waiting for the next new thing, the novelty. So yeah, so it happens both ways. But the most important thing is that due credit, I don't know whether that gets into a financial kind of royalty mode, but a due credit, like a citation, is a very important thing to, be put out there.
Thank you, Rashmi.
I think I will, try to twist this thing a bit. So we are sitting in a literary festival, and we had a very special chief guest. And we all know him not just because of his, English, the encyclopedia that he has, and the dictionary that he carries with his vocabulary, but also the advocacy he does for India. We are a big fan of that. Mr. Tharoor has been always talking about that what Britishers took from us, I think that it's not just the Britishers, but the entire Western world has an approach to look at the Eastern countries like that. Why I'm trying to say this is not the first time that somebody has taken the inspiration from India. Often now and then. In fact, the very first term, the lota, where do you think it comes from? Charles and Reims, when they talked about the design product, it's an inspiration from India. If you pick up the dictionary, you will see many Hindi words taken as it is, and not even the credit given to it. The lut, it's not called stick. It's not called the log. It's the lut. Inspirations have always been going from India. We are a great civilization with great cultural context, great storylines, great craftsmanship. But somewhere, what we lack is the noting, the track of it. We are not maintaining, the documentation. Somehow we lack that. And that's how somehow it has given the privilege to outsiders to take anything from us and then chapofied it with their own name. It's a very old thing. Churao और अपने नाम से छाप दो. So it's not a new story. When I saw about this Prada thing, okay, thanks to LinkedIn, thanks to Instagram, thanks to Facebook, we have voices now. Suddenly we all realize, reel छोड़ो, इसके बारे में बात करो, तो हम बात कर रहे हैं. लेकिन ये सदियों से हो रहा है. ये हमेशा होता है. हमेशा जिसके पास कुछ नहीं है और जिसके पास कुछ है वो वहीं से कुछ उठाएगा और अपने नाम से उसको बेच देगा. खैर, we have things in abundance. We can talk about it. We can mention it belongs to us. We should be given the credits. That's it. Credit मिलना चाहिए. आज का time है. We have strong voices. We have mics in our hand. We have these literary platforms. We can say, हमारी चप्पल है, हमारे कोल्हापुर की है. बिंदास हम अपने नाम से छापेंगे. Why to give the credit to others? So whether it's a Louis Vuitton doing the auto or it's like Prada doing the chappals, I think let's put a chappal on their own faces and say, please stop stealing from us.
On a lighter note, I think Prada was in one of the forums called Chappal Chors. So
so we are just making it a lighter, not the heavy forum.
So I think, yes, it started with the spices. Then it went on to the Kohinoor. It went on to the wealth the Maharajas had. And now I think it's craft ki bari. So we have to be aware and vigilant. But on a serious note, I would like to point on the GI tags that we have. We have the GI tags in place. What are we doing with them? It's not just important to document the craft and, give it a GI tag and then forget about it. There are so many artisans that I've talked to coming from Kutch, coming from Fulkari or from Punjab. They don't know what a GI tag is. They don't know what it can do to the craft. I've seen Fulkari being made in the Noida and UP borders as well. But is it right? It's not right. It's illegal. If it has a GI tag, it's illegal to reproduce these crafts in the different state. So what are we doing about it? I think to extend this and have something which will give the needed, I can't say, I'm not getting the word, to give it the due of, of the craft, that it belongs to India, it belongs to this particular state. And if somebody else anywhere from the West is taking inspiration or copying as it is, it cannot be done unless they pass through this certification or some kind of check that has to happen before they use or reuse this craft.
Actually,
Which
I
they
think
call
it is the social media by which we at least come to know of it so quickly. I mean, before the age of Instagram or before the age of social media, I do not think we used to come to know of this kind of an appropriation for at least a month or two until, the print media reached us. So I guess, this is also good to raise awareness so that people start taking up that activism, that stand, and say that, okay, please give credit wherever it is due. All right, thank you. Thank you so much. I would like to now open the forum for question and answers. Oh, we already have a hand there.
So I myself am a craft person. I think anyone in SSLA will tell you that I'm the one person who sits in the back of the class and does crochet while the professor's talking. And I wanted to ask, as new craftspeople, as people who are entering the scene today, how can we make sure that we're doing this ethically and make sure that we're doing it in a way that's continuing traditions in a good way? So what materials can we get? What resources can we use? How can we support each other? Because for college students, it's often hard to buy like traditional crafts. So how can we support in other ways? Thank you.
So, first of all, when somebody says how we can do it ethically, anything ethically comes from inside. इसकी कोई बुक नहीं है. कुछ भी anything you want to do ethically, वो आपको अंदर से लगना चाहिए कि मुझे ethically करना है. कोई बता नहीं सकता. Nobody can teach you. From childhood we've been taught, do things correctly, do things ethically. But do we follow it? We only follow it if we believe in it. So one point is that, ethically. The second is, when you said how do we share it, when you see that you have like-minded people around you, you can form the groups, you can get associated with the bodies who are working in that same context, whether it's a craft museum, whether it's craft village, whether it's craft council, or whether individual brands, who are working in the same area, and you can seek support. They will come forward. You can also write to World Craft Council, become the young members. They have youth programs. You become young members, they will provide you support. They will provide you support of various kind in terms of information, in terms of sponsoring, your projects, in terms of taking you to different places. I think these are the ways forward. By sitting and working in isolation may not help. I always say one thing, beta. Artists work in isolation, but a craftsman can never work in isolation. A craftsman work in a community. जब एक आर्टिस्ट काम करता है तो वो अपने लिए कमाता है, लेकिन एक क्राफ्टमैन काम करता है तो वो पूरे घर और गांव के लिए, पूरे कस्बे के लिए काम करता है. और क्राफ्टमैन अकेला नहीं जुड़ता, उसके साथ 10 हाथ भी जुड़ते हैं. So work in a community, get together with the people, and you will find support.
So you mentioned that it's also important to economically support artisans and craftsmen. But if we want Indian textiles like Pichwai, which is a holy craft, to have the spotlight at a larger stage or a broader stage, wouldn't that also diminish the veracity of the craft? Because again, that stems into mass production and capitalism. So I said that if we want Indian crafts and Indian textiles, which are usually protected, like Pichwai, which is a holy craft, if we want them to have their own spotlight, their own stage, wouldn't that stem into mass production, and wouldn't that eventually diminish the veracity of the craft?
I think we'll take answer from her, but I want to add one thing here. Craft cannot go in mass. It should not go in mass. ये कोई factory production नहीं है. ये mass हो ही नहीं सकता. ये हमेशा exclusive रहेगा, rare रहेगा, times के साथ बदलेगा, रुकेगा, फिर पैदा हो जाएगा, फिर खड़ा हो जाएगा, फिर कहीं लुप्त हो जाएगा. ये बना ही नहीं है मास होने के लिए. ये बहुत रेयर चीज़ है. जैसे हमारे प्रकृति में धरती के गर्भ से जो भी हमें एक नायाब चीज़ें मिलती हैं वो बहुत लिमिटेड होती हैं, वो मास नहीं होती हैं, उनके भी लुप्त होने का डर होता है। कुछ उसी तरीके से क्राफ्ट है। कभी आप इसको इस तरह देखें ही ना इस गलत फहमी में कि बेटा ये मास हो सकता है या कोई बनाना भी चाहता है। हम तीनों ही पैनलिस्ट में से कोई भी नहीं चाहेगा कि ये मास की तरह पड़ा रहे। अभी इज्जत बहुत कम है, हम उसी को बचा रहे हैं। मास हो जाएगा तो कोई पूछेगा भी नहीं, पैनल भी नहीं हो पाएंगे।
I also wanted to add to this that the moment you say that this is an authentic craft and you want to maintain the authenticity of that craft, these are always one-off pieces which are made with true passion and care by the artisans. So these are the pieces which will go into, say, archives or exhibitions, or they will go into these curatorial spaces where they cannot be replicated. So the whole point about these kind of larger pieces, particularly when you're talking of Pichwai or say Matari Pachedi, anything which has got a religious connotation, these are pieces which are primarily made for exhibition. They are not made for consumption. So that is the one distinction that can be made.
You know, you must have heard, आप जिस भी बच्चे से पूछो कि सबसे बढ़िया खाना क्या होता है, वो कहेंगे मेरी माँ के हाथ का बना खाना सबसे एक्सक्लूसिव है। आपको कभी रेस्टोरेंट में वो खाना नहीं मिल सकता, चाहे वो सादी अरहर की दाल है हींग जीरे का छौंक लगा के, वो रेप्लिकेट हो ही नहीं सकती। कुछ चीज़ें रेप्लिकेट होने के लिए, मास होने के लिए बनती ही नहीं है। उनकी एक्सक्लूसिविटी ही रहे, रेयर रहे, लिमिटेड रहे, जिस तक है उस तक रहे। I think that's a point.
Right. We have two more questions here.
Yeah, I have a question. Good afternoon to you. First of all, a very insightful session. And my question goes to Iti. Iti, first of all, congratulations on giving the a platform to all the craftspeople. It's really commendable. But what I, on behalf of the audience, would really like to understand is that it's also, like you said, the third generation is just not interested in getting into this due to various reasons. So what would be the kind of bottlenecks, obstacles that you may have encountered in getting them together? Because it's a craft. They might have been that it's my craft, as you say. So how is it that you got them together? What was the bottleneck? How did you get over it? I know it might get into a longer answer, but we would really like to understand, because you've really touched upon a very important facet, because that's what our country is.
What you want to understand is what are the challenges I have faced
What are
in
the
bringing...
challenges? How did you get various craftspeople from all over India who are so diverse together in a single platform?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question. When we started in 2015, see, I've been working since 2000. Okay, it's been 25 years since I'm working in various exports, design houses, as a freelancer, as now a craftpreneur, as craft revivalist, culture revivalist. So it's a long journey. But जब हमने शुरुआत करी थी 2015 में, तो हमारे पास कोई गाइड बुक ही नहीं थी, कोई मैनुअल ही नहीं था कि इस तरह की ऑर्गेनाइजेशन चलती कैसे है. Craftledge is a unique organization. It's an ecosystem. We have awards. We have IP, India Graphics. If you name Graphics, there are London Graphics, Sydney Graphic, China Graphic, Korea Graphic, very limited graphics. And in India, we do the graphic. It's not supported by government, no investors, no private bodies. We solely take care of it. So I'm very proud to say that I started very big things, but I had no manual for it. So of course, the challenge was big when I began with it. But for a seeker, nothing is a challenge. If you're a seeker, if you want to find your path, if you want to go on a route, you will always try every possible way. My husband always tells, who's a professor and my co-founder, he says, Iti, when you have to reach from one destination to another, you will first decide in your mind that you have to reach somewhere. Then you will get up from your home. Then you will find the various modes of transport. Then you will look which is the modes of transport affordable for you. Then you will find the tickets. And then you will go out and stand on the step, the stand, the station, the airport, and then go. Similarly was for the Craftledge. We started writing to different people. We started writing to government, to various craft bodies, to institutions, friends, known contacts. We started telling them we want to do something like that. Help us. We got a couple of information from the government, from other places. But when we started doing programs,
we saw the artisans themselves started approaching us. So there is a very fine quote by Rumi, what you seek is seeking you. I think when I started doing this, people started seeking me, and they started writing to us. They said, we want to talk to Iti ma'am, we want to talk to Sumesh sir, we want to understand how we can come together, how we can work together. We announced awards. We used to give advertisements in local newspapers. We used to call them up, make a body. We used to have students from different colleges who work as interns, who would call them up and tell them, we want to do these programs for you. We started with workshops, little exhibitions, and then projects, and then came the big thing, India Craft Week, and then everybody was on board. I think I'm very lucky that almost everybody from India has contacted us, all the artisans, and not just India, international. And you'll be surprised to know, Queen of Malaysia got the Craft Icon Award from us, and she personally came with the entire palace to collect the award from us. So we have reached to this stage that not just our artisans, the royalties have started writing to us, filling the form, filling all the norms. We made a process for everything. We ensured that there is a system and everybody stands, together on it. An artisan from any village and a royalty will stand together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We can take one question.
Just a very small, you did touch on this, Iti, but my challenge as I'm working as the chairperson for Flow is when we connect with the artisans to bring them into mainstream, there is no other choice but to give them some modern designs. Because otherwise for them, I agree with you that you can't make, it's making a notebook and this and that is not art or craft, but there is a challenge. Now corporate, I know, we are local, they make beautiful things and they have come into mainstream. But how do we balance the two to kind of keep the flavor or the tradition and have to do some kind of designing which has to come into mainstream for being able to sell? Like for 30 years I've been working with Zari Kota weavers from Kaithun. Now the challenge is that they are wanting to make designs with butterflies and with, they are quite ghastly. But the thing is that that's what they say sell. So we have to balance, I don't know how to balance between that. So if you can just throw a little light, very small answer.
Yeah. So I think as all of us working in the craft sector, it's also our duty to make sure that there is some gravitas to the work that we do, right? It can't be frivolous. It can't be कि कल हमने एक कुछ देखा है तो like Iti said, ये मैंडा किस में डाल दो, तो वो pen stand हो गया. We are not that, and we don't propagate that. So to answer your question, this will only happen when there are people who are invested in the crafts, invested in what is tradition, invested in what is heritage, have done some background work, and then see how the journey has to be to take this craft to a contemporary stage. Like you say that you've been working with artisans for the longest. So artisans are makers primarily. I say this again and again. They're primarily makers. They don't have the time, nor the resources, nor the ability to look at what's happening in the larger world. Of course, they do now with social media. But like Gurminder said, that getting something that is, let's say, honest identity, heritage out into the market is a long process, which is why designers or interested people like your firm or concern has to come and work with artisans. Because artisans can they understand designs very quickly, but what design to do, what to put out in the market, what is the pricing, this is where help is required. Assistance is required.
I'm a sociology student personally, and I found the discussion around just like how art, like craft is exclusive, but then how much I have read about like art and power dynamics in society is something that I connect with it. How do you as craftsmen try to like navigate between trying to not make art exclusive just for people in power? Like I understand craft cannot be mass produced. But then how do you ensure that just a daily common man can also access this art? Because often exclusivity means that only people with power or people with money can access it. So how do you try to juggle that?
No, common man has been accessing craft. Every household has a craft items. आप शायद जो confuse हो रहे हैं, probably there is a traditional arts. You are considering only that as a craft. Bamboo product craft है, सिक्की craft है, embroideries हैं, वो craft है. तो craft तो हमारे घरों में मिलता ही है और masses में भी मिलता है. और सब हाट्स और बाजार्स में 50 रुपए की आइटम से लेके 50,000 तक सब मिलता है. तो सब कॉमन लोग एक्सेस कर सकते हैं. देयर इज नो एज सच डर्थ ऑफ इट कि नहीं मिल पा रहा है. जो पेंटिंग्स हैं, द ट्रेडिशनल पेंटिंग्स, when they are small motives and all, then they are cheaper. Once they go back to the big canvases, the wall decors, then they are exclusive art items. That's one thing. Coming on to the home products, then coming on to the embroideries. You have kasuti, you have, ma'am is wearing this particular फुलकारी है, काथा है, इतने सारे क्राफ्ट हैं आपके, तो वो सब एक्सक्लूसिव क्राफ्ट्स में आ जाते हैं. लेकिन ये सब भी मासेस में, हार्ट्स में, बाजार्स में मिलता है. क्राफ्ट, भारत का क्राफ्ट एक इंटीग्रल पार्ट है. क्राफ्ट इज इंटीग्रल पार्ट ऑफ अवर कल्चर, जस्ट लाइक फूड. ऑल अवर होम्स हैव इट. टैसल्स मिल जाएंगे आपको, बेल्स, डोर बेल्स मिल जाएंगे, तोरण टंगे होंगे, वो सब क्राफ्ट ही तो है. मशीन से तो बनता नहीं है, तो सब हाथ से बनता है. दिवाली आएगी, दिए मिलेंगे आपको, वो भी हाथ से. टेराकोटा के प्रोडक्ट्स मिल जाएंगे, वासेस मिल जाएंगे, गमले आपके बनते हैं, पॉटरी का पूरा क्लस्टर है, खुर्जा का काम है. क्राफ्ट तो हर 10 कोस पे, 50 कोस पे जाओगे, कुछ ना कुछ मिल ही जाएगा. बहुत खूबसूरत बात आई विल टेल यू हियर. सो दिस इज वेरी फेमस फिल्म डायरेक्टर मुजफ्फर अली हु मेड द फिल्म उमराव जान. So I have an interaction with Muzaffar Sahab and it's in my video, and I asked him about the craft. So he tells me कि मैं जब कहीं जाता हूँ तो वहाँ का दरिया ढूंढता हूँ कि यहाँ दरिया कहाँ है. Where is the river around? A water body. That water body defines the craft of that place. So he said when I went to फिरोजाबाद तो मैंने वहाँ यमुना जी देखी तो मुझे पता लगा कि ये चूड़ी की खनखन यहाँ से आती है. तो हमारी चूड़ियों में भी क्राफ्ट है. आप चूड़ियाँ पहनते होंगे. Your mother must be wearing bangles, sisters. So craft तो हर चीज़ में है. ग्लास की बैंगल्स में भी है क्राफ्ट. हर घर में क्राफ्ट है. अगर आप बहुत एक्सक्लूसिव ट्रेडिशनल आर्ट्स को, गोल्ड फॉइल वर्क को, उसको ही क्राफ्ट समझ रहे हैं तो वो नहीं है. क्राफ्ट हर तरह के प्रोडक्ट्स में है. इवन दीज टेबल्स व्हेन दे आर हैंडमेड, दीज आर क्राफ्ट आइटम्स.
Right. So, craft is accessible. Just to round up the
it is accessible
the entire
to
discussion.
everyone.
Craft is accessible, but the quantity of the craft on your product could be slightly smaller as compared to like a larger piece. So craft is accessible, but of course, like I think Rashmi said this, that there is a market for every product. So going to a market, you will find a product for 20 rupees. You can also find it for 20,000 rupees or even 2 lakhs. So there will always be a representation of craft in a variety of products. So it is always accessible. Okay, I think we have reached the end of our time. Thank you so much, Gurvinder,
Thank
Iti
you
and
so
Rashmi.
much.
We had a wonderful discussion with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such a lovely session. How fitting that at a literary festival, we should be reminded that stories are everywhere, right? If only we soften our eyes and ears enough to see and hear them, right? Thank you so much. You've inspired us to seek stories with empathy and care, I think. Thank you. Please join me in thanking our panelists.